Okay, on our FM750 screen here, we're going to go through the icons to the left and the right of the screen today. The first icon in the upper left, you will see a green satellite. That is telling us that we have our GPS satellite signal. If it is yellow, we are not ready to go yet, and if it was red, we cannot go. It usually takes approximately 10 minutes or so for that to go green once you initially start up. If you're on WAS, if you're on RTK, it's less than that. If you're on OmniStar, it's probably more than that. So our first option here is the status button. And when we press the status button, you can see it shows some current status items like field name, area, productive area, coverage, nudge, your implement width, application width, and storage hours. The field area and the coverage area are probably the two most important on this screen. The field area would total the number of acres inside a boundary if you draw a boundary around the outside edge of your field. The productive area would include the number of acres inside a boundary, but it would subtract out a waterway or any kind of exclusion zone that you drive or enter in that field. And then coverage area is going to be the amount of acres that you have already covered, that you have already tilled or mowed or sprayed or harvested, and that is what's being painted yellow on your screen. If you press the status button again, you can see on this screen it's showing the roll angle rate, heading, and yaw rate. That is the terrain compensation box on the Easy Steer system we're hooked up to. That's telling you that it is operating. Generally, when we're not in demo mode, a second screen will come up and it'll be a GPS screen that will tell you the satellites that you are seeing, and as well as other GPS features that you're looking at. That is important to note when this little green satellite goes yellow. If you're watching your satellite screen, it probably means that your number of satellites you're able to see have dropped. But in the demo mode, we can only view the roll angle screen. If you hit this arrow over button, you will see where you got camera A and B. That's where you can go into view Ag Cam. If you have that hooked up to your display, this display can look at two cameras and toggle between both cameras on this with those icons. If you don't have it or you don't need it, just arrow back over. And at any time you can also clear out this side, and so you have a larger viewing screen while you're in the field if you would like. The next tab down is the settings tab. This is where all of the settings for the display, for autopilot, easy steer, easy pilot, your flow and application, all those settings are done in this under this tab. So we will go through this tab, and the first one you see is vehicle, and you will see we are set to easy steer or manual guidance would be another way to say that. And you would go in and do your easy steer setup. Your easy pilot setup would be the same, look very similar to this. Your autopilot setup is on the 750 is done through a laptop. And you can see we have your where you would set up your vehicle. Those are your measurements that you enter in, and you have your status of your steering system right there. So that is the vehicle. That's where you enter in your auto steer information. I will go into more detail about easy steer later on. Your next icon over is implement. This stands for flow and application control. This is not where you go in and enter your implement width if you are doing tillage and harvesting and things like that. This Field IQ icon, if you select it, will change some settings in here and open up to do flow and application control, and it's saying no Field IQ modules have been detected because we don't have a system plugged into. But this is where you would set up for your row clutches on your corn planter, your sprayer section and boom control, your variable rate fertilizer, and those types of flow and application things. So Typically, unless you're running a sprayer, a fertilizer spreader, or corn planter, this icon here is going to be none. Your next icon over is guidance, and this is where we're setting up GPS or guidance types of settings. The top one here is turn settings, and basically you can leave those as you see them there. Minimum turn radius automatic, tight turn threshold 5, auto U-turn detection on. You can turn that off if you're having issues with freeform, but I would leave it on. It makes freeform a lot simpler to operate. Coverage settings, and you will see on-off delay. The important one on this page to look at is coverage logging, and you will see you have options here: disable, manual, engaged, or switch. When running a steering system, typically we highlight the engaged button, so anytime that you engage your steering, it is going to paint the screen. This screen, it says coverage logging. What that means to you is that that's when you paint the screen yellow when you're going through your field. You can also hook that up to an external switch like an implement lift switch back on your grain drill or planter. In the Field IQ system, an implement lift switch is standard operating procedures for corn planters and things like that. If you want it on manual, you can leave it there, but every time you want to start logging, you will have to press this button on the screen on the lower left to turn your paint on and off. So in coverage settings, we're going to leave it to engaged. And next is nudge settings. Nudge is allows you to shift your line to the left or to the right of where you currently are at. This comes into play in helping to correct for wash drift a lot of times, or if you are running a high accuracy, you can shift over and plant your bean rows between your corn rows if you would like to when running higher accuracy. That is one option you could do. So you can see clear nudge at end of swath, leave that off unless you want to. Reset nudge, no. If you have it yes, it's going to reset it for you every time. Nudge increment is an important one on here. So what that means is when I nudge right, it's going to move my line 1 inch to the right, or if I would go left and move it 1 inch to the left. You can increase or decrease that number accordingly. I think 1 inch is the minimum. The next tab to go through is mapping. This one is important, especially when dealing with an area, and the warning distance is how many feet before you get to an area. It'll flash a warning up on the screen for you. The more important one to take note of is recording position. So for area, when you're recording a boundary or a waterway, right now it is set to record at the antenna. You can change it to the left boom or the right boom, or it would also mean the left side of your implement or right side or the center of your boom. We have been typically leaving this on antenna for recording waterways and boundaries. It also goes into effect for when you record a point, like if you're marking a tree in the field, or a line like an AB line. It's going to record based on your antenna. You want to leave that at antenna there. Your next one is freeform recording. That has to do with the freeform pattern. And if we go into there, you see option manual or record with coverage. If you have it on manual, you're going to have to press the freeform button at the end of every row to start and stop freeform recording. If you set it to record with coverage, so right now if I've got coverage coming on anytime I engage my steering, anytime the coverage comes on, then it's going to record my next pass. So freeform, we will go into greater detail in the freeform movie, so see that movie for more information on freeform. So our next button that we go to is our headland infill switching. You have two settings here, automatic and manual. If you have it set to automatic, when you're in the headland pattern, if you drive inside of your outside passes, it'll automatically pull up your straight back and forth lines in the center of the field. If you have it set to manual, you have to manually switch to those center straight lines on the inside of a headlamp pattern. It's totally up to you as to which one you decide to do. And our last one here is boundary setup. Two settings on here. Boundaries are enabled, so that means they are active when you are running section control and sprayer booms or row clutches on a corn planter. Those row clutches and booms will shut off when you go across a boundary that has been recorded. The other item on here is expand boundary, and you have some options here to not expand it, to expand it half a swath width, or expand it one full swath width. That is totally up to you as to what you decide to do. If you are spraying your outside pass of the field and you are having problems with your outside section shutting off a lot, you may want to expand your boundary half a swath width when you spray that first outside round of the field. Then you'll want to come back in and change to do not expand so your sprayer shuts off if it would happen to swing outside of that boundary. So it concludes the guidance tab, and we'll go on to the GPS tab, and we'll go through GPS setup. You will see here we have WAS, Omni, VBS, uncorrected, external corrections. Every system out of the box is WAS ready, so it'll be selected for WAS. You can upgrade this display to OmniStar. Once you purchase the unlock, OmniStar will come up here in this list, as well as RTK will come up here in this list, and you can unlock your displays at any time you so desire, depending on which accuracy that you need to run. So we'll highlight WAS for today. And your position quality, you want to be on favor accuracy. If you have satellite visibility issues, you may want to choose favor availability for short time periods to give you more satellites to be able to run. And the other item on here is satellite. This is the WAS satellite that we are viewing. In our part of the country, you want to select WAS 138 satellite. If you leave it on auto select, which is the way it comes from the factory, it may switch to a different WAS satellite. When that happens, or if that happens, you may see a lot of drift or your lines would move. So go ahead and lock on to WAS 138. Advanced tab. The thing to note on here is go ahead and select yes for use SBAS satellites into position fix, and that'll help your satellite visibility a little bit also. And the status button, if you want to see status of GPS, it'll show your latitude and longitude on this page, your altitude, your speed that you're going. For troubleshooting purposes, you may want to take note of HDOP if you're having issues with satellite drift or satellite visibility. That could be one thing to help troubleshoot. And this is individual satellite status, and if we were actually outside, we would be actually viewing the corrections and if the satellite was used or not on this page.